It's getting cold outside, and I don't know about you, but I need some fingerless gloves to get me through the winter season. These gloves look great in any yarn type and are really easy to make. So let's get started. The materials you are going to need are 100 yards of yarn, as well as any size hook. I am using a 5.5 millimeter hook. You will also need scissors. Like always, we are going to start off with our slip knot. To complete a slip knot, you want to wrap your yarn around 2 fingers to create a loop. Then you want to pull the yarn connected to the yarn ball through the loop to create yet another loop. Next, I'm going to chain 24. This is equal to the circumference of the widest part of my palm. You can chain any number you want to suit your needs. Just follow the pattern as if you have the same number of chains as I do. Now that we have completed our chain, we are going to join both ends of the chain. To do this, we are going to follow our chain with our fingers to the end where we first started. Then we're going to find that first chain that we completed, and we're going to insert our hook and slip stitch through that chain. Now we will work in rounds. Starting with round 1, we are going to chain 1. After chaining 1, we are going to slip stitch into the second chain from the hook and every chain around for a total of 24 slip stitches. So to slip stitch, we're going to find that second stitch from the hook, and we're going to pull through yarn, and then we're going to pull through the loop on our hook. And that completes our first slip stitch. But before we continue on, we are going to actually mark our stitch. So what you want to do is grab any scrap yarn that you have, and you're just going to cut off like a little piece. And then you are literally going to mark your first stitch. So to do this, you're going to find that first slip stitch, which is right there. And keep in mind, your first slip stitch is not your chain 1. So make an effort to differentiate them. We're going to find that first slip stitch, and what we're going to do is we're going to place our stitch marker right in front of it, and we're going to pull it through. And this is going to mark the first stitch of round 1. So this slip stitch that we just did counts for round 1. So there's our first stitch. And we're going to continue on until we have 24 slip stitches. Keep in mind that when you're working with slip stitches, you only want to slip stitch into the back loop only. The back loop are the loops on the outside. Moving on to rounds 2 to 20. First, we are going to slip stitch into the stitch marked with the stitch marker. Once again, we are only working our stitches into the back loops of the slip stitches from the previous row. So you're going to find that first slip stitch and you are going to slip stitch into that slip stitch. And then this counts as your first stitch for the current row that you are working on. So once you have that slip stitch, you are actually going to move your stitch marker so that you can mark the beginning of your current row. My current row is row 2. So we have that stitch right there. We're going to take out our slip marker, not our slip marker, our stitch marker, and we are going to pull it through so that we can mark our current row. Next, we are going to slip stitch into every stitch around for a total of 24 slip stitches. So remember that first stitch counts as our first slip stitch for our current row. This next one is going to be 2. And then the following one is going to be 3. And we are going to continue on until we have 24 slip stitches. So you are essentially repeating row 2 or round 2 until you have a total of 20 rounds. So for round 3, we're going to do the exact same thing that we did in round 2. First, we're going to slip stitch into that first slip stitch from the previous row. Then we are going to take out our hook so that we can actually move our stitch marker. We are now marking the current row, row 3. Remember that first slip stitch counts as your first stitch for that row. And we are going to slip stitch in every stitch around for a total of 24 stitches. Again, you will repeat this until you have a total of 20 rounds. And once you have a total of 20 rounds, it should look a little something like this. We're going to move on to round 21, where we are going to single crochet into the stitch marked with the stitch marker. So we're going to find that stitch marked, and we're going to single crochet into it. So you're going to yarn over, pull through so that you have 2 loops on your hook. And then you're going to yarn over once again and pull through both loops. Next, we are going to move our stitch marker so that it marks the first stitch of our current round. My round right now, and yours too, is round 21. Once we have successfully moved our stitch marker, we are going to single crochet in every stitch around for a total of 24 single crochet. Keep in mind that that first stitch that you did counts as the first stitch for your current round. This stitch right here is going to be number 2, and the next is going to be number 3, and you are going to continue on until you have 24 single crochet total. Keep in mind that when you do have slip stitches in the previous row, you are only going to be working into the back loop only, as seen here. That completes round 21. And for rounds 22 to 26, we are going to repeat the exact same thing, which is single crocheting in every stitch around for a total of 24 single crochet. So for rounds 22 to 26, first and foremost, we are actually going to be working into both the front and back loops, considering this is not a slip stitch from the previous round. And what we're going to do first, like we did in round 21, is single crochet into the stitch marked with the stitch marker. Then we are going to move our stitch marker to mark the beginning of round 22. There you go. And we're going to continue on and single crochet into every stitch around until we have a total of 24 single crochet. You are going to do this until you have 26 rounds total. That completes rounds 22 to 26. Moving on to round 27, we are going to single crochet into the first 20 stitches. Now, this is where you're going to be creating the thumb hole. So depending on how big your thumb is, you may have to crochet only in the first 18 stitches or maybe in the first 21 stitches. But the point is you can manipulate this number to suit your needs. Once again, we are going to single crochet into the stitch marked with the stitch marker. Once we do that, we are going to move the stitch marker so that we can mark the first stitch of our current row. So next, we are going to complete a single crochet in the next 19 stitches for a total of 20 stitches. This means that I personally will have 4 stitches remaining when I complete my 20 stitches. You may have 5, you may have 6, depending on how large your thumb is. Regardless, complete until you have the desired size for your thumb hole. If you're confused right now, just sit tight and it's going to make more sense when we get to the end of this round. So these are the 4 stitches that I have left out for my thumb hole, and when we move on to round 28, we are actually going to be closing it, and that is going to leave an official hole, if you call it, for our thumb. So moving on to rounds 28 to 30, where we are going to single crochet in every stitch around for a total of 20 single crochet. So As I mentioned before, we are going to simply single crochet as if we never did anything, never left any stitches out. We're just going to single crochet into this stitch, just like that. And that creates our thumb hole. It's that simple. Afterwards, we are going to move our yarn marker, and then we are going to single crochet in every stitch around. We're going to repeat this until we have a total of 30 rounds. So it's essentially what we were doing in rounds 21 to 26, except for this time we have 20 stitches total and not 24. So we're almost done, so exciting, but to finish off, our last round is going to be round 31, where we are going to slip stitch into every stitch around. So we can actually remove our yarn marker because we don't need that anymore. And what we are going to do is simply slip stitch in every stitch around for a total of 20 slip stitches. So once you finish your slip stitches, we're going to actually finish off, and this means that we are going to slip stitch into the first stitch of round 31, and then we're going to chain 1 and pull through a loop, and then afterwards we're going to cut and pull through that yarn that's left over and tighten it. Now, you can wear this in several ways. You can actually wear it with the cuff really long, just like this. Obviously, you'd want to tuck in any loose strings, or you can fold it over, and that is what I'm actually going to do. I'm going to fold it over, and then afterwards I'm going to proceed to cut / tie in any loose strings that are hanging out. And there you have it! You are finished with your fingerless gloves. You are so ready for winter. And yeah, thank you, subscribe, and please, 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 please check out my blog or my Tumblr if you're interested in seeing a written pattern for this project, or if you're simply interested in seeing other things related to crochet. Thank you so much for watching. Moving on to rounds 2 to 20. Now don't be intimidated, I'm going to walk you through this. First, we are going to slip stitch into the stitch marked with the stitch marker. Wow, that is a tongue twister. Anyways, moving on. We are going to first find that slip stitch with the okay. Then you are I can't speak.